We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm Ginger Bandeen with Mission Driven Data. I'm joined today by Nicole Morris from Mission Driven Data. We are excited to be talking today about Power BI for really, really beginners. And I think the subtitle in the things we sent out was like what the heck even is Power BI? So if that's where you're at, you're in the right place. We're excited to see you. Okay, so let's start off about whether you're in the right place. I would say you're in the right place if you're curious about Power BI, but a little nervous or overwhelmed about how to get started. If you build Power BI reports or you're planning to build Power BI reports, I still think this is a good opportunity for you to put yourself in the shoes of someone who is a brand new user of a report, because the best report you make is one that someone will actually use versus one that no one uses. So I think it's always good to put on like a lens of like what would this be like for someone who's brand new to Power BI and how can I make this as easy as possible for them. You're also in the right place if someone sent you a Power BI report lately and you were too embarrassed to tell anyone that you haven't opened it yet, or you opened it and you're like, oh my gosh, what is this? I don't know, this is scary. So you're totally in the right place. And you're also in the right place if you're just like super excited about Power BI, you want to share that excitement. Maybe you brought some friends today. This feels very like revival-y. Like maybe you brought some friends. It's going to be great. We're going to have a good time. So I know quite a few agencies invited other people on their team. So you probably may or may not be like a data person, but you don't have to be a data person to be here. Nicole and I are going to tell you about how we both started off not as data people. So no panic. Okay, so today we're going to talk about what is Power BI. We're going to talk about something called pages, reports, workspaces, file types, refresh buttons, filters, and then we're just going to show you some Power BI. And we're going to take it slow. We're going to help you see what's cool about it. We're going to make it nice and easy. So everyone take a deep breath. It's going to be great. So I'm Ginger Bandeen. I am the founder and CEO here at Mission Driven Data. I'm a social worker. So I have my master's in social work. I'm an LCSW. I started off doing my clinical background is I worked at a shelter for people who were homeless in New York City, and then did intensive case management out in like rural Oregon. And then I started doing like quality improvement and utilization management. And then that turns out to be about data nowadays. So that's how I started learning the data side of things. But I just want to normalize that when I first opened Power BI, which was about, 7 or 8 years ago, when I first opened it, I was like, oh no, I have to like learn a whole new thing. I already know how to do these other types of reporting systems. And now I'm going to have to like grow up and do something different. And even though, our company, we are fast growing and we are always doing new and exciting and cool things, sometimes I still get kind of like a gut reaction when I see something that's unfamiliar. And I really love working on things that I know how to use and I feel really competent in. And I really have to get over the feeling of discomfort when I have to work on something I'm not familiar with. But I will tell you that I think it's totally worth it. So that's my story of when I first opened Power BI. How about you, Nicole? Do you want to introduce yourself and tell your story?
Yeah, so I have a very similar background to Ginger. I found that all across every role that I had in behavioral health, I always wanted like more information to understand pieces. And the first time that I opened up Power BI was really just as an end user to be able to look at something. And I remember feeling really overwhelmed and excited, both by having so much information that I could look at immediately, but also really overwhelmed by having so many options to choose. And it definitely informs then what I think about when providing somebody with a Power BI to look at to try to limit, the overwhelming feeling of too many choices and be able to guide people what really you might want to see. I will also admit that I too had a bit of a transition period from letting go of all of my spreadsheets and the 4,000 formulas and things that I was used to and knew how to do, to realizing that in Power BI, with one or two clicks, I could do that same thing that sometimes took me actually quite a bit of time in Excel. So if that's you, then welcome. Welcome to the new era.
It's okay to still love Excel. You can still do some things in Excel. There's still a use for it, but yes, I think it's good to know that people can advance. We can all do it. And I can speak for myself. I was not a spring chicken when I first started learning Power BI myself. I mean, I was, I wasn't just out of college. And so it's never too late to learn something new. And I think it's very worth it. So we're excited. We know that you're here because you're open to learning about it. And we're excited that you're here for that. Thanks, Nicole. Just very quickly about what we are, in case you're like, who is this mission-driven data company? So I started our company 6 years ago. We help agencies understand their electronic health record data and data from all different systems that they use. We have a community where we host free online events like this. We also host in-person events sometimes. So if you ever hear about us in your neighborhood, we hope you'll come see us. But really, the community events are meant to be a service to you all. So we want to help you advance your skills. We want to help promote best practices. If you're not already a member of our official online community, you can join from the link in the chat. But we hope you'll join. There's about 500 people in there who are all just people like you who are interested in how to make the world a better place. So we'd love to see you there. And then we also do consulting. So sometimes what we do is help agencies figure out what kind of reports they need and get those reports for them. So let's dive into Power BI. Power BI is just a computer program that is just like Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel or PowerPoint. One of the things that is sometimes confusing about it is people use the word, you know how people will say the word PowerPoint and it might mean a slide deck. It might even be a slide deck that's not saved in a PowerPoint format at all, like it came from a Mac. So it's just literally a slide deck, but you call it a PowerPoint. It could be a slide deck you've published on the internet so that people are opening it up on the internet, but you're just calling it a PowerPoint, even though they're opening it. They could be opening it as a PDF for all you know, but you call everything a PowerPoint. Similar with Power BI, where people just call everything Power BI, and that can make it a little bit confusing. So Power BI is a program that lives on your computer. That's called Power BI Desktop. And also Power BI gives you the option to publish reports to a website, so to powerbi.com, which is under the umbrella of the rest of your Microsoft world. So if you're in your Microsoft account, you're publishing a report or you're viewing a report, you're looking at it kind of like if you were looking at Outlook online or you were looking at Word online or Office 365. So it's just a place on the internet that is secure for you and your organization where you're looking at a report. So those are the two big distinctions is, are you opening a Power BI report on your computer or are you opening a Power BI report that's on the internet? Which sounds really basic, but because we call it all Power BI, it's pretty confusing. So we're going to show you this in real life too, so you'll know what we mean. Okay, so then the other thing that can be confusing is kind of how Power BI is layered. So a report, and everyone also calls everything in Power BI a report or a dashboard. And those also are not the same as everything else. So in Power BI sort of lingo, a report is a file that can have multiple pages within it. And technically in Power BI lingo, a dashboard has a special meaning that actually we never even use. You may use it at your organization. It's a very special functionality that I haven't found a lot of usefulness to. So when you see something that looks like this, we're going to do a deeper dive on this. This is a report. This is a page on a report is what we're looking at right here. But you'll see that it is just I'm opening this right now on my computer. It's just open on my computer. So you can see that it is just a file. It has a name, see iServe sample data. It's just a file on my computer like any other file on my computer. If you open the same report in your browser, like on the internet, you might open it and you might get to something called a workspace. So a workspace is kind of like a folder would be in your OneDrive. So I'm in kind of like a folder called Presentation Data Snapshot. And then here, see, I have one of my reports is called iServe Part 1 Sample Data. And now if I open that up, now I'm inside this report in my browser. Same thing, right? Same. That's the same thing as that. We're going to talk about what the differences are. But you'll notice that now that I'm inside a report, I have something called pages. So pages are kind of like tabs, like different tabs is how you would think of it in Excel. But a report can have multiple tabs or pages. So there's workspaces, big picture kind of lots of reports in them. There's a report, which is like this. And then there's pages within a report. And then just to make life so complicated and annoying, you'll see, like you probably already did if you have eagle eyes, I'm in what I called a workspace, and I said it was like a folder, but then there's a dang folder in there, which is like a fun thing Power BI added lately, which is that you can have a folder inside a workspace. So the whole way that I've always explained a workspace is like a folder. Now there is also a thing called a folder. So far, we haven't found a lot of uses for folder. So hopefully at your agency, mostly you would deal with workspaces, reports, and pages. So I'm going to go back to the slide that kind of explained this. Workspaces is where your reports live in powerbi.com. A report is the file you're opening. You could be opening it in your browser or on your computer. And pages are like tabs inside of a report, just like Excel would have tabs. Nicole, what did I miss?
So I just wanted to also mention, we talked about the fact that the Power BI application has a specific thing that they call a dashboard with function. I think it's also okay to, if you feel comfortable with talking about things as a dashboard that is a report that has many, many, many visuals or types of charts on it. I think most people oftentimes sort of just colloquially refer to that as a dashboard, and most folks will know what you mean. But we did want to mention that there is a specific function in the Power BI as an application that talks about a dashboard.
Thanks, Nicole. Sorry, I skipped to the next slide by mistake, but good point. You don't have to use the fancy word. You can call it whatever you want. No one will be confused. Like if you saw this in a meeting, you'd be like, I like that dashboard. That's like many of us would call that a dashboard, right? That's okay. It's just good to know that if you ever Google Power BI dashboard, you might get confusing results because they have a special thing they call a dashboard. That's all. But you can call it whatever you want. And it's mostly just what helps you understand it. Yes. So we talked about workspaces, reports, and pages. But I actually realized my slides are a little out of order. So I did have a nice slide that explained the difference between on your computer and in powerbi.com. So I think that would be a good thing for us to just keep reiterating, which is that on your computer, you have a Power BI file, and it's like the file is like a report. Just like you know how a Word file would be called like dot doc or docx, or an Excel file is xls. Wow, that's a hard one with my lisp. Or .xlsx. A Power BI report would be .pbix. So that's just a file type, right? Like on your computer, it's just a file, just regular old file. And when you have a file that's on your computer, you can open it in that Power BI desktop, just like you would open a Word document in Word, and you can edit the report from there. You could even build a report there. So that is actually the main way we would recommend building or editing a report is on your desktop. Because when you're editing it on the browser, everyone's seeing it while you edit, which is just kind of like annoying. And also there's more functionality in the desktop. It's kind of meant to be used by a designer. So that's why you'd want to use the desktop. But the point is that when you're messing around or building a report on this file that's on your computer, depending on where the data for that report comes from, it might be like static. Like it might not be updating all the time because it's just a file. There is a way to set up a file to refresh, but most agencies wouldn't do that. Mostly when you're in the process of like building a report, you would just grab like a copy of your data at that moment and build the report, but it wouldn't be refreshing all the time. If someone emailed you a .pbix file and said, open this report, you could totally open it. It would have the data in it, depending on, there's a few factors. Let's not get into it. But basically, it probably would have the data in it, but it's just a one-time bit of data, right? It's not like refreshing all the time. So usually people who are opening Power BI on their desktop computer would be people who are building reports. So most people who are interacting with reports as a user, so I think that's most of the people who are here today, you are mostly going to use Power BI on the internet, in the cloud, in your browser. You're going to go to powerbi.com and you're going to log in with your credentials. and you're going to see reports. So just as a reminder, that's going to look like this page where you get to like, you might get a link to a workspace or you might get a link directly to a report. So in the browser, when you log in and see a report from here, it's typically view only. Typically, you're not editing the report itself. You can interact with the report. So I'll just show you, like I can change the selections on a report, but it's not, I'm not editing the actual, like, it's like, what is it like? It's a little different, I guess, than anything else, because if you were editing a file in Excel and changing the filters, it would be like saving everything you're doing. But Power BI, because it's meant to be a way for multiple people to view the same report, the things I'm changing as myself just are remembered for me, not when I'm just changing filters and stuff, it's only changing it for me. Someone else could be looking at the same report and using different filters, and they would see what they picked. And then the other nice thing, the nice thing about data that's in a PowerBI.com report is the data can be set up to be refreshing automatically. So you might be able to log in tomorrow and see brand new data from the night before. So usually that's why a user would be logging in and using it from the browser. The reports are updated, it's usually auto refreshed, and it's a little harder to break. It's very, actually, if you are just a viewer on a report, you basically can't break it. You can't break it for anyone else. You can't accidentally edit the data. Like your developers would have set it up so that you're safe. You can literally play and you can't break anything on this when you're in this browser, which is how most of you would be viewing reports. What else would you say about that, Nicole?
I would say really important. You can't break anything, but you can get lost. And so we'll talk a little bit later about tricks where you can be like, wait, I just want to start over, like as if I just opened it. And so we'll talk about how to be able to get you back there.
Yes, we will. That's next. So, okay. So thank you, Nicole. Okay, let me go to our next slide here. So Nicole kind of gave a little preview, but there are a few things it's really helpful to know when you're using Power BI in the browser, which is what we're mostly going to talk now about using Power BI in the browser, because that's what I think most of you will use. And because the features there are just so much easier. And again, you can't break anything, but it's really helpful to know how to use everything. Okay, so a few buttons that are helpful to know is one button is this round arrow that is sort of a hollow round arrow, which will refresh your data. And another arrow that is helpful to know is a backwards green arrow, which is kind of the thing Nicole referred to. So let me show you that while we're talking about it, just so you know what I'm talking about. One is this hollow arrow. I meant to do something so you could really see where my mouse is. It's in the top right corner. And one is this green arrow. So the round see-through arrow is a good one to know if you are the kind of person who leaves your computer on at night, or if you're the kind of person who has 100 tabs open and you don't even remember the last, sorry, Nicole and I are both nodding because that's us, we're those people. So if you are someone who tends to have a ton of browsers open, you tend to maybe not even remember what you have open anymore, then it's good if you go into a report and you're like, oh, it doesn't look like the data refreshed last night. This round see-through arrow is kind of your friend because Power BI is like in the browser is working kind of like a website. So have you ever gone to like your email if you use like browser-based email and like there's you have a new email but it hasn't shown up yet and you realize like, oh, the browser's kind of like hasn't refreshed the screen lately, right? Like it's like there's data in your email, maybe showed up on your phone, but like the screen your browser's in just hasn't like caught up yet. It's like still looking at the last time you looked at it. So the fancy word for that is cache, but like basically like, and probably people who use Credible are familiar with that word because I know it causes all kinds of problems with other things. But basically sometimes a website is just showing you the last thing you looked at because it saved itself the effort of going out and trying to refresh since you hadn't looked at it in a while. So anyway, if you ever see that kind of problem, the see-through refresh button is your friend. The second kind of thing that happens to people is you might be a clicker. Raise your hand if you're a clicker. I'm a clicker. So if I open a report, I'm very likely to go like, oh, I can move this around and I can move that around and oh, I can do that and I can click here and like, oh no, what did I just do? Now I only have like 13 records in here. Where did all the rest of my data go? So if you're someone like that, then this green button is your friend, because what the green button will do is it will just start you back at the beginning with everything before you started filtering everything down, and it like gets you back to go. So now you can see the green button isn't even there, which means you haven't clicked on anything yet. So it's like it's unnecessary. But as soon as you start doing the thing I do, which is like click all around, it'll be like, hey, you want to go back? You want to go back? So that's what that's doing. And when I say back, I mean it takes you all the way back to how is this report published to begin with. So green arrow is your friend. Nicole, what else would you say about those things?
I think that use them liberally. You also can't break it by using something, either of those pieces, and encouragement on those. I did want to mention for the few people here who do maybe also like publish or develop a report, Ginger sort of embedded a statement in there to say that it goes back to how it was published. So it's possible that when somebody created this report and handed it to you, they were really kind and said, you don't need to see every bit of data. You probably just want to see one part, maybe just the last couple of years. And so they pre-filtered that information to just the last couple of years. And when you hit that green arrow, it's going to go back to what it was when it was first published, which was already pre-filtered to the last couple of years. And then in that like first contact date, you get to select to say, okay, they started me with the first couple of years. Now I just want to look at maybe 1 month or these couple of months within that time frame.
Or maybe you want to go even further back. So maybe you're like, I appreciate that normally I don't want to look at old stuff, but today I do. So today, maybe the default on this report would be set up to be like just this year. But then like today I'm like, no, or just this month. And today I'm like, no, I actually want to go further back. So yeah, that's a good point, Nicole. So you might have a friendly report builder who writes you a report that's like already filtered down to, let's say, like your program or the program you work in the most often. But maybe one day you're like, oh, well, today I hit that green button and now I'm back to just seeing my program, but I actually want to see a different program today. You can still select a different option. But yeah, that's a good point. It's not necessarily setting it back to having no filters. It's setting it back to the filters it started with. I thought what you were going to say is if you're a report builder, make sure you save the report with the filters you want people to use because it'll always take them back to those filters. So if you're like me, you may have made the mistake once before where you had something filtered and you published it that way, and then there wasn't a way to reset it back. So that's separately if you're building reports. If you have any questions.
I think that's in a webinar that is in the community. Yeah.
So, but anyway, yes. So green arrow is your friend. It takes you back to the way the report was sort of set up to run for you. Okay. So we've talked about a couple things. I just wanted to reiterate, even though you're hitting that see-through arrow to refresh the data, it is refreshing on a schedule probably at your agency. If you're working with us, it's set up to refresh every night. It's not that the data didn't refresh till you hit the arrow. It's more like you've been logged into Power BI for so long and you've had this website open so long that it's refreshed since you last looked at it and it just hasn't caught up. So I just wanted to reiterate, just similar to like your email is there. It's just that your website's kind of gotten like the web page has kind of gotten like stale because you've had it open so long. So it's not like everyone's waiting for you to hit that button for the data to be refreshed for everyone. Like other people who didn't leave their browser open are probably seeing the new data already. All right, next, let's talk about filters. So let's start at the beginning, okay? Let's go back to this one we're looking at on the internet, because I never even said what a filter is. So let's start off with what is a filter. So when we're talking about filters, we're talking about things like this date slider that you can move around. So filters can be date sliders like this. Filters can be drop downs like this. Another thing that can be a filter is by clicking on something in a report. So if I was on this report and I clicked on Medicaid only, see how it changed what data is showing in the top? If I switch now to both Medicaid and Medicare, I see a different set of data. So it's like clicking is like using a filter. So when you click on something, it filters it down. And then when you click on something up here, same thing, right? So if I was like looking at this report and I was like, let's say I clicked on May and I clicked on just these folks, you can kind of get yourself confused if you have filtered things so much that you see less things than you expect. So let me say that a different way. So like if I click on nose and then I want to see how many, let me think. All right. If I'm trying to find like, let's say in this example, things that are missing, and I know when I looked at the total, there were some that are missing for May. But that's a good one. Okay, so see how in May, this is an example. This is a metric report that looks at how much time goes by between someone's first contact with your agency and their first evaluation. And I should have said all of this is fake data. Fake data, no real data. So let's say that I was like trying to figure out what happened in May, and I looked over here and I saw there were 55 first contacts, but there were only 53 evaluations. So somewhere in there, we missed a couple of people. They haven't come back yet. Maybe they no-showed, so we're missing a couple of people. But like say then I just clicked on this part of the chart. Well, now I only see 8 people and my missing people are gone. It feels like they're gone, but it's just that all of the filters are interacting with each other. There's more ways we're going to say that, but I just want to explain. So the slide is actually pretty good at this too. Let's look at the slide. So a good example of when you have more than one filter on the same page. So if you, let's say you had a report and one part of the report was a filter you could use to just look at billable or non-billable services. And let's say there was another filter on the report that looked at visit types. So what could happen is if you click the filter to just look at non-billable services, all of a sudden your list of services in service types will just be the non-billable services because you told the report, ignore everything that's billable for right now. So now when you go to open and look at the filter for services, it's already ignoring all the non-billables. So sometimes people will do that and they'll be, or a good example of this is like maybe you're just looking at really recent data and then some of your old service types don't show up. Well, it's because no one's used that service in the time frame you've selected. So it's kind of confusing if you're used to using other reporting tools because some reporting tools don't do that. This is kind of a cool feature in a way, Power BI, which is like if you don't want to have to sort through the big long list of all your services, sometimes it's nice if the first step you can do is just say, well, I'm only interested in the billable services. And then already it shrinks down the options in your service type list. So it's actually intentional for it to work this way, but it can really make people feel like, oh no, our data is missing because it's not showing up in the filter. And it's because of those other filters you might have selected. So it's this concept of like interdependence. What else would you say about that, Nicole?
I just was going to say that by design, then you may want to go ahead and look at just certain service types. And then when you went and looked at the options under your billing type, if it all of a sudden only gives you non-billable, you now know that both of those service types for sure are non-billable.
Yeah, that's a good point. The filter goes both ways. So if you picked on the service type, it's only going to keep the options in billing type that are real now.
I always like to say that Power BI sometimes is like tries to be smarter and sometimes being smarter than for those of us who are curious and are like, no, I take things at face value. I want to see everything there. It can trip us up a little.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say this is a really common one, even for me sometimes, where I'm like, oh, where'd that data go? And then I realize, like, oh, well, a common one that happens sometimes, so don't feel bad, is that people think they've done a service, but no one's actually used the service yet. So sometimes for real, there is no service to show up yet because it's not pulling the list of all possible services in like credible. It's pulling the list of, like, if you're pulling data that's about services provided, it's pulling the list of service types from that list of provided services. So if you haven't provided a service yet, it's not going to show up in your dropdown. If you have, just side note, if for some reason you need that to happen that way, you can set it up that way, but I don't recommend it because then you'd be like, well, why did it let me pick that if there's nothing there? So, okay, so going back to looking at filters. So we talked about these different filters. I just wanted to look really quick and see if I had a page that had 2 filters. I don't really. So yeah, but the way it works when you click on things is like a filter. So just wanted to point that out. Okay, let me see if I missed anything that we wanted to make sure we said on this slide. Filters are interdependent. When you select one, it changes what's available. This is on purpose. It is called, it's what makes some things so cool. Like when you saw how I was clicking on one, that thing where when I click on one report, one part of the report, and it changes the other part of the report, honestly, that was the magic that first hooked me on Power BI. And just for your information, that just works. You don't have to build it. Like it's not programming. It's just Power BI being smart. So if I want to see, just the Hispanic Latino population in this data set and I click on it, I just get to see this chart now by the Hispanic Latino population, which is the thing that I find, or if I just want to know how many Hispanic Latino people were in May, what was the breakdown just in May, I can just click on May. Or side note, can hold down control and click more than one thing. Oh my gosh, we're getting into advanced features. Holding down control. We can do it. It'll be okay, guys. So holding down control will let you pick more than one of a thing. So, okay, cool. All right. So filters and interdependence. Good, good, good. Good job, guys. Here we go. All right. So now we want to just show a few more features in Power BI. So we talked about Power BI. We talked about Power BI in the browser. Now we're in the browser. A few things that we wanted to show you guys. We wanted to talk about how things work together, but we wanted to describe one extra special kind of thing that is this thing, which is a parameter. When we build reports, we always kind of try to make them look a little different than the other parts of the report. They're usually a radio button, and I kind of flipped through this quickly, but I want to show you what this does. So right now you can see that this page of the report is broken out by client ethnicity because I've picked client ethnicity. What's cool about this is you can select a different option and it actually changes what this report is broken down by. So I think of this as more like an option list, not a filter, right? Filters reduce the amount of data you see or expand the amount of data you see. These options, the fancy name for them is parameters, they change the way the data is broken down in the report. So if I wanted to see that by age group or client race or ethnicity or insurance type, I could do that. If you're on the call and you're a CCBHC, you've probably guessed that that's because when you report out your CCBHC metrics, you have to report it by these different categories. So we've made it really easy to do that. But I think it's also, these are great options for what I think is really cool about using Power BI is the ability to go in and identify a pattern you wouldn't have seen any other way. So when I think about these different categories, you know, if I wanted to know how is access going for like the more elderly population, 65 and older, like if I literally can just click on this row of the data and I can see how we're doing with that. You know, how many evaluations did we do? What's our average days to evaluation just for that group? I think that's kind of magic. You know, if I wanted to compare, like we were doing a minute ago, Hispanic Latino population to the non-Hispanic Latino population, like what's going on there? Is there a difference in the data? And I can literally kind of ask that question and answer that question myself. And that's one of the things that I think is magic. What else do you want to say about that, Nicole?
I think that oftentimes historically we might have seen multiple reports, one that bucketed everything by age group, then another one that told us insurance. What is kind of nice is that that particular sort of feature allows you, without having to go to another report or a different page or open up anything else, you can sort of flip through what you want to be able to look at. And that's kind of nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's and it also kind of lets you fact check yourself because you know that you're still looking at the same totals. Like it's not like missing somebody because you selected one of these. You can kind of fact check. You know how when you had multiple pages of reports, you'd end up having one report that had one less person and one report that had one more person, and then you're spending your whole day trying to figure out why they're different. This also lets you just look at the same set of data, but just broken up different ways. So I like that too. Okay, so we talked about filters. We talked about this little feature, which is I like to call options, but it's fancy name called parameters. We talked about how reports interact with each other. Showed how you can click on different pieces of the report to filter the other pieces. Another thing you can do in a chart that has like year and then month is you can actually, it's not going to be as exciting because I only have 1 year of data here, but you can select a whole year at a time and it'll like highlight all of the things in that year. But I want to show you one more cool thing because I know that you guys are doing fine and you're ready for the next cool thing. So anytime there is a different color of something in a report, and it's the kind of report we build. We teach you how to do this in one of our sessions, as Nicole said. You should have the option to drill through to get to the details. So all I did to make that magic happen is I selected whatever the part of the report is that I want to look at. And then I right-clicked and I looked for the little drill through option. And then I can click on the part 1 details. Again, fake data. Fake data. I made ChatGPT write me a list of fake names. So if you accidentally see your name, it's just that somehow ChatGPT made that name up and it's similar. These are pretty generic names, by the way. Also fake client, everything's fake. All the data is made up. So this is an example of a drill through page where you can see all the details about what's going on with that little sliver of data that I chose. So this is like for the people who really want to get into the weeds. In this example of this report we're looking at, where maybe you're trying to look for people who haven't had an appointment yet. In fact, let's kind of do that story. So like, or yeah,
Oh,
actually,
Ginger, can you show you went back? Can
I
you show people
did.
how you did that?
Thank you, Nicole. I always forget to tell you. I just do it without thinking. So we were on a details page and I was like, oops, I don't want these details. I want different details. I can click on this arrow to go back to the page I was on. You might notice it also was in the menu over here in the page menu to go back, but I like using the arrow because just on the off chance you forget which page you were on, it's much more orienting to just go back. So I'm going to show one more time. I was on a thing, I right clicked, I drilled through on here, and I'm like, okay, I'm either done or I didn't quite pick the right thing. I click the arrow and I'm back where I started. Cool. Okay, while we're in that drill through page, there's just a couple more things I was going to show you guys. So when you see something like this in Power BI, which is like a giant chart table thing with lots of data in it, this is where many a person is tempted to export this and put it in Excel and then make a new chart out of it. I want to encourage you to think about how much of that could be done just within Power BI. You can sort this chart by column names. You can hold down Shift and sort by more than one column name. You can, if you have a certain thing you like to filter by, you could have your report writer add you a filter if there's something you always like to see. But for example, on this report, this is an example of like looking at people who have evaluations and when their next appointment is and stuff like that. So like you could sort by, like in this example, although I had ChatGPT make up the names, so they're probably all unique. But like if you had multiple people who could have had upcoming appointments, you could sort it by that and then sort it by, you could sort it by that and then hold down Shift and sort it by date. So we try to make these as interactive as possible. And the other cool thing, which I couldn't quite get set up for you guys to see in real life because it's a little hard to demo it like with fake data, but you can set it up so that these links to client IDs would be links back to that record in Credible. So that makes a report even nicer so that like you can work your list right from the report.
I want to reiterate that you'll notice that Ginger selected and what she drilled through was folks that I think were no, maybe hadn't had something in the last 10 days. And because of that, when she drilled through, it was only the list of clients that hadn't gone ahead and had something in the last 10 days. So there were all the people that fit in that no bucket. So it is pre-filtered from here, and then you could do your sorting pieces.
Yeah, good point, Nicole. So I picked May, so you can see all of these are May, and I picked people who had 10 or more days or never got a service, right? So now I'm seeing all these people who have where it was more than 10 days or they're missing their eval completely. So thank you for pointing that out. That's a very good point.
What's nice about that is now you have a list of, oh gosh, here's the two people, because she sorted that. Here's the two people who haven't come in. And oh, I see that their next appointment is actually at the end of this week. We're good. Or they don't have something scheduled. We should probably call and go and get them scheduled.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and I just want to talk about because we talked about pages, but again, I kind of flipped through that quickly. So in this report, this has a page about the time to service with a graph and with a chart. Our iServe reports usually also have a page that shows you who is excluded from the metric because they didn't get an evaluation. So if you're curious about that, which most agencies are, this is one of the principles we follow as report writers, which is it helps build trust in a report if your report also shows you what's missing. Because if you look at a report and we don't want you to look at a report and your next thing you have to do is go look something else up. We want the report to answer your next question. So when we look at this and we see there were 376 first contacts, but only 354 evaluations, we kind of know your first question is going to be, who are the 22 that were missing? And have they had any missed appointments? And do they have an upcoming appointment? So this is the page we give you to kind of see that. It's like we're trying to read your mind ahead of time. Like, what would you want to know next? And then on iServe, there's also this thing where if you're a CCBHC, you'd be familiar with this, but like you can't, it doesn't count as a first contact if someone's had services in the previous 6 months. So we also give you like a way to see that. So I just wanted to call that out too, because that is a nice thing, is to make a report that has that drill through, but that also has some details to answer like the next question you're going to ask. I think historically, when agencies are relying on lots of spreadsheets, there's a few things that can go wrong with that. And I kind of alluded to this, like you could have multiple sources of truth. And the nice thing about the way a Power BI report on the browser is if I'm opening this report and Nicole's opening this report and someone else is opening this report, we are all looking at the same set of data. It's not dependent on when we downloaded it from the ad hoc query. It's not dependent on which filters we had on the ad hoc query. We're all looking at the same set of data. And I feel like having been in community mental health, Nicole and I have both worked in that for a long time. I think many of us, probably a lot of you in the audience, have sat in a meeting where you're kind of picking apart data and you get sad because instead of getting to actually work on what the data is showing you, you're kind of stuck like picking it apart. And that's like valid because if there's no transparency, like if I showed someone this report and they didn't have a way to drill through and see what was going on and see what was missing, that's very valid for the person's first gut reaction to be like, well, I'm going to need to go look into that and see if that looks right. And we all know data can be used to say anything. So you should do that. What we try to do when we have these Power BI reports is have the answer to your question built in so that you're not stuck in that loop. That loop sucks. I would say the one I've seen the most, usually the most likely time to get stuck in a loop is when the data you're looking at has a lot of like emotional baggage to it. So if it's like a metric you're being judged by, or a metric someone's using to evaluate you, or a metric that is used to make decisions that are kind of scary, like it's just easy to get stuck in the weeds. And I feel like the nice thing about Power BI as a tool, because it has this central source of information, it really saves you, it makes it less emotional. Like you're still going to have the feelings about the data, but you can it gives you a little distance. It gives everyone a chance to say, okay, we're all looking at the same thing now. We didn't have a secret meeting where we made a report. We were looking at this data together. And now we as a group are trying to solve whatever the issue is that's causing this problem. And if we can shift people from being defensive to being in problem solving mode, I think that's a win. What about you, Nicole?
I mean, much more pragmatically, I would also say that those spreadsheets also get versions that get saved, and then all of a sudden they're kind of off just in general because I saved mine where I went ahead and cut out, these 50, sort of pieces of result or rows, and yours still has them. That also, or if you've ever accidentally had somebody overwrite the shared sort of spreadsheet, also really pragmatically a time saver. Those spreadsheets I wasn't kidding when I said, oh yeah, like it actually is a lot faster to be able to sort and filter here than sometimes the calculations and various things, especially if you're a VLOOKUP. You know who you are out there. Love themselves some VLOOKUP. This goes ahead and does that without having to do those calculations and do them each time, you get a new spreadsheet of data to redo that. It's already doing that for you, and it is doing it the same way that I do that calculation. It is doing it for Ginger when she looks at it too. So we don't have a discrepancy in how we filtered or sorted for the most part.
Yeah.
You still have Power BI where Ginger could pick May and I'm looking at February and our data shouldn't match.
Right. Yes. I mean, you could still dig yourself that hole, but it's much harder. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. And I would say the other thing I like about Power BI is we've basically now shown you all the things there are to do as a user. Like all these things we've talked about today, that's about it. Sure, there are like fancy things report builders can do, but like if you can open a browser and you can click on things and you can right click on things and you can hold down Control and Shift and you can't break anything, then that's a pretty usable system. It's pretty user friendly. And that's the thing I think that I just wanted to reiterate to everyone here today is you can't hurt it and it's meant to be used. So, if I'm in here and remember, if I like clicked on so many things, like I am so confused and I'm lost and I have no idea what happened, you always have your get out of jail free card, which is the green arrow. And if you end up on a like weird tangent somehow down your browser, this is just a web link. So you can save that as a favorite in your browser and you can just click on it. It takes you right back to that page. So if you like this page, you can just save that. So I think we all know you all are busy and the people using reports have more important things to do than try to learn a new thing. So I think I used to be one of those people who was like, oh, people just like Power BI because it's shiny, you know? But turns out shiny matters because people will use something that is nice to use. And so we work really hard to make our reports nice and user friendly, kind of clean, kind of easy to see what's going on, because that turns out people will use it then, which is really what we want. We want people to use the data. I did just want to call out in our online community, we have three sessions now. With this, it'll be four. Where they're called like Power BI 101 and Power BI 10, and it's really those sessions really are for more like report builders. So if you are sort of thinking of being like a report builder, I highly recommend checking those out. I'm going to talk about events coming up in the community because you could come to an event and get some help too. So thanks everybody for filling out the poll. It's super helpful.
And while customizing reports to fit what you want seems to be currently the leader in the poll for what you find intimidating, a second is knowing where to start. And I want to make a plug for Start Anywhere. You can't break it. Literally just opening it and clicking around and sort of seeing when you select something, what changes is not a bad place to start.
Yeah. Yeah. A good place to start is just try clicking on everything. You can't break it. Just wanted to give you a little heads up about our next workshop. So our next workshop we're going to do is called Mapping the Credible Data Universe. This is going to be a little bit of a deep dive into the tables in Credible that we use all the time for report writing and kind of how we use them and what some of the fields are and how they connect. And I know we have a lot of people who are starting to dabble in SQL, and we just want to offer you guys support. So that'll be July 10th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to see you there. I bet Crystal might even have the registration link to put in the chat, possibly. So look, if not, we'll send that out as a link in our email, I promise. Also coming up in October, I just wanted to give everyone a heads up about this because we have a really special, we're having a guest speaker come who's going to talk about financial reports. We've added a lot of financial reports to Janet lately, and I'm not an accountant, but we are going to have someone who understands all that stuff come and talk to us about how they use those reports all the time in their agency, and that's going to be really cool. If you're interested in presenting, KDP at Mission Driven Data is our coordinator of all cool things presenting. And just to point out, if you've already joined our community, you'll see those little Power BI sections. They're on the left-hand side. We'll also include this in the follow-up email. Just a reminder, you can also take advantage of Janet for CCBHCs, which is a cool new package of services we have available. And basically, our mission is we think you should all have access to the data that you need to support your mission, and we want to help be the catalyst for change by kindling your curiosity and creativity and helping you guys create a new vocabulary of metrics that truly measure the quality and value of community services. So that's why we do all this stuff. That's why we're here. We want to share the good stuff. We want you guys to have what you need. So I'll stay here for questions, and then I'm going to look at the chat. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Ginger,
Nicole.
there is one question that is in the chat. It was asking about, are all these functions through the mission-driven data purchased add-on services?
I don't know if I totally understand that question. Power BI is not something we own. Anyone can use Power BI. Our Power BI reports come with Janet, which is the software we sell, and the functions. So all of our existing reports have a lot of those things we were showing built in. Sorry, Crystal? Refreshing? Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. So maybe that question has to do with like the data automatically refreshing out of Credible. That is typically through Janet, which is the tool we use to pull data out of Credible so it's ready to go into Power BI. So that we host all that for agencies. But I'm not sure otherwise. If you have more questions about that, please feel free to shoot me an email and we could schedule some time to chat. I also don't have it in the slides, but we have co-working twice a month. So I wanted to put in a plug for that too. If you are new to Power BI or new to any of this, and you want to just come hang out with people who are nice like me and Nicole, you should come to co-working. It's the schedule's in our community. It's free. It's much more informal. So we just hop on a Zoom, and anyone who's there, we're like, hey, who's here? What do you need today? And then you get to meet the other people that are there, and we just troubleshoot or problem solve or brainstorm. And it's super fun. Yeah.
Every once in a while, it is that only like one person shows up. And when that happens, then we're even willing to take a look at your real data because your data is probably going to have PHI. If it's just you and I there, then we're happy to do that. We then if there were multiple people here, we wouldn't encourage you to share your PHI
And
with
we should say
everybody.
that's if there's someone who already has a relationship with us, because we would have had to sign a BAA. But we can do a lot without seeing real data. Like we can help with a lot of things. So please come. It would be nice to see you. I do see there's a question. I might follow up with you with an email real quick too about that. But because there's a question about how this compares to like credible BI. And
Hmm.
yeah.
That's a longer discussion we would love to have.
Yeah, I would say that we have worked with a lot of agencies who have found a lot of advantages to Power BI. So if you're thinking about deciding between those two, I'm very happy to have like a conversation about it. So yeah, cool. Okay, everybody. Wow, we did right to the minute. I mean, we're a minute over. Thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope this was useful for you. We just want you to go out and try using Power BI. Go give it a try. You can't break anything. Just go out and have some fun. And we look forward to seeing you at another event soon. So thank you all so much. Take care and have a good weekend. Okay, bye.